Hi, AJ Hartley here, novelist, Shakespeare professor, baby metal fan. Though, again, I'm not talking about baby metal today. I'm going to do another Atarashii Gakko no Leader song. Couple of reasons for this. As you may have noticed, partly I think in the in the aftermath of the of some fan cam videos being released after the Budokan baby metal shows, there's been a sort of crackdown on illicit video, including a bunch of compilation performance videos, some of which I have used as the basis for my commentary. And that means that a couple of my videos have been caught in the crossfire as those sites have been shut down. And I don't know if the videos that got tagged for copyright infringement will be back up or not. If not, I'll have to re-record the concert footage. It's hard to do what I do without being able to refer specifically to moments in the song as I go. So, if I have to take all that stuff out, then it's just me sitting here and talking, which I don't think people will find very entertaining or compelling. So at the moment, I'm going to wait a little bit to see how things shake out before doing more baby metal videos using concert footage. The other reason is that, the Atona Blue song that I talked about a week or so ago got actually quite a lot of responses. In fact, more than some of the recent baby metal stuff has. And also because I really like those guys. I've been following them for about 6 months, and it feels like they're on the point of breaking out internationally, especially since partnering with 88 Rising, which is a sort of international representation and distribution group, bringing Asian acts to the US and elsewhere. So I think there's real potential. A lot of videos have popped up relatively recently that are sort of official, which seems to suggest that they're being much more conscious about the international market, which I think is really good. They've been together since 2015, but at the beginning they were doing sort of conventional, manufactured, idol group J-pop stuff, some sort of, teen magazine, modeling, advertising, TV commercials, and stuff like that. And then in 2017, they released their first single, and this is the song that I'm going to talk about today, Dokubana. And that's the point at which they start to really take control of their own product. And that's where I think they start getting really interesting. As a general rule, I'm not particularly interested in idol groups. I don't find them interesting. I am interested in them when they start to morph into something else. And I think that, what I find compelling about Atarashii Gakko is that they are increasingly clearly artists. The artistry manifests in different ways, but they feel in some ways less like a group and more like an art project. They're drawing on lots of different styles of music, as you're going to hear in this song today. And they do all their own choreography. They're writing at least some of their own lyrics. And they're real personalities, and the more you see of them in the videos that has appeared, the more the stronger they seem, the more distinctive, the more unique. And let me use this as a little jumping off point to insert a little mini rant. Some of the people who, because I hadn't talked about Atarashii Gakko before last week, some of the comments on the site, on the channel, how can I put this? If you assume that the fan base of a group like this is all about men who have sort of romantic / sexual fantasies about Japanese women, and that's what's driving the interest, that says more about you than it does about the fans, and even less about the group. So don't project that shit, okay, onto the people who are watching. A, watch the damn video, because if you'd watch the video, you'd see that that wasn't what I was talking about. Quite the contrary. And B, understand that, yes, are there fans like that in the Japanese music community, especially outside Japan? Of course there are. That's not a question. But if you assume that everybody is like that, then you do the fans a tremendous disservice. But more to the point, you do the band a disservice. If you look at a group like these guys, like Atarashii Gakko, and you assume that the only reason that people might be interested in them is because they think they're cute or sexy or whatever, then you are projecting your own racism and misogyny onto a group of extremely talented, smart, capable women. And you need to keep that shit off my channel. Wakatta? Okay, end of rant. Let's talk about the actual song now, shall we? So the song is composed by Masayuki Hizumi, who goes by HZM, who's a jazz pianist and composer who works a lot with Atarashii Gakko. Lyrics are by Jam, about whom I know nothing to speak of. The song is called Dokubana, doku meaning poison, hana meaning flower, when the two words go together because of the vocal placement shift. The H of hana becomes a B. So Dokubana means poison flower. Enjoy. Okay, so as usual, they are in the sailor suit school uniforms, though we sort of cut between this kind of warehousey sort of environment to something a little bit like a school, but also a little like a prison, which I think is interesting. So the first line's Warui Hana, Warui Hana. Warui just means bad or potentially evil, but generally just bad. And Hana means flower, as I said. So Warui means bad, as in, watashi no nihongo wa warui desu. Gomen nasai. So bad flower, bad flower. Nande sakaseta. Why did it bloom? Warui hana, warui hana. Mo chirasete. Let me scatter it. I'll talk about what this all means a little later in the song. I think the bridge clarifies it, but initially this is what we're talking about, the poison flower. Man, the last song that I did, Otonna Blue, really sort of foregrounds the ironic side of the band, the playful. This one goes full out for the real sort of drama and emotional weight of the song. And it's there, I think, in that very sort of jazzy piano and bass driven instrumentation, and in the choreography. And as I said before, they do all their own choreography. So there's a sense that the movement and the words are really sort of fused at the semantic level. This is how these songs generate meaning. It's in the full performance, not just in the melody or the lyric. We begin with this is such a great phrase. Bakarakara, bakarakara. Baka means stupid, as anybody will know if they watch any anime. Dakara means because or therefore. It's a causal thing. So bakarakara means something is stupid because it's stupid, right? and the repetition and all those syllables beautifully arranged, right? That those da and ka sounds that come back in both words and suggest, something is stupid because it's stupid. There's a sort of base, a fundamental, ontological, essential element. Things are going to behave stupidly because they are stupid, right? I think in part it's an interesting idea because it touches on what I want to get to as the idea of a bad seed. In English, we use the term bad seed to mean something that is fundamentally flawed, a person who is fundamentally flawed, and therefore behaves in a certain way because it's in their nature. So bakurakara homararete saichate, it was praised and it bloomed. Hana wa hana demo, flower is indeed a flower. Doko no hana, but it's a toxic flower. I thought I was hearing hata rather than hana. Hana wa hana demo. Hata would mean a sort of flag or a banner, which I don't know that it works in the circumstances as an alternate. So let's stick with hana. So the flower was praised in some ways, but it's poisonous. Man, they find some real power, I think, in this song. It's a revelation. Mijimena hananya, it's a miserable flower. Togemo nai doesn't even have any thorns. It's poisonous, but it's not prickly exactly. Hayai toko karete. So it withers rapidly in place, like on the spot. It just sort of collapses. Oshimai, perishing, dying. I wonder if the karete is also punning on karen, which is a term in Japanese used to mean an attractive woman or a flower. And I think that there's a lot of that may not be there, but there's a number of connections in the song expressly making connections between the flower and a woman. And this is a familiar thing in Japanese and other cultures. I talked about this a little bit with about Sakura Sakura, the use of that folk melody in Baby Metal's Megitsune, and connecting it to Sakura meaning cherry blossom, and the idea of them evolving from a certain kind of conventional attractive womanhood into something else. And I wonder if there's something similar going on here, where the poison flower that we're talking about is specifically feminine, and that and part of the reason I was thinking this also is that dokufu is a word meaning like a femme fatale, a dangerous woman, right? Dokufu, doku again meaning poison. So I think that the poison flower that we're talking about is, in a sense, themselves. Not because they think they are necessarily toxic, but because in not being conventionally feminine, they attract that kind of disdain or scorn. And if you spend any time watching the many, many videos which have started coming out about Atarashii Gakko, part of their appeal, I think, especially in the West, is that they are, Suzuka in particular, in many ways, very, very unconventional as Japanese women. They're very candid, witty, performative, clownish, smart, self-deprecating, but in an edgy, almost confrontational sort of way. They draw attention to themselves and they demand to be seen and heard. And I think that's what makes them really compelling, for me at least. It's the smartness, and the self-assurance, which I find really powerful. And you see that, I think, in the choreography, that we see these sort of images of them in the sort of conventional high school bad girl pose, sort of sitting around slouching and scowling and such. And then the force and the power that goes with both the music and the energy of the choreography. Okay, so waru warete, again, the sort of pairing of these syllables, the waru warete, very similar words. It's being mocked and torn apart, so that the toxic flower, the poison flower, is being ridiculed and shredded. Fumitsukurarete, and being trampled down, right? The rarete means is what makes it the subject of the trampling, right? Sorera noni, but even so, mata sugate. It's still hanging on, clinging on to life. So our sympathies have shifted, I think. You know, that initially it's the sort of, we're pouring dislike and disdain on the poison flower, but now we're starting to see it life from the position of the poison flower, right? Who's ridiculed and disdained and trampled. Beautiful. One of the things I love about these guys is that they have different backgrounds as dancers, which they all bring together to share. As I say, they construct their own choreography, and you can see if you watch them closely, not just in this video but generally, that they have different specialties in terms of dance. Rin, who's at the front in that shot, has a lot of sort of hip hop and pop and lock and freestyle kind of stuff in her background, and you'll see more of that in the videos. Whereas Canon, who's the one with her face up behind her, has a more sort of classical, almost balletic kind of style, and you see these things sort of juxtaposed against each other throughout. Okay, so in that we start to see the unity within the group, right? The holding of hands, the bonding together, right? The rejected. This is the way I'm reading it, right? Sort of seeing themselves in the poison flower and holding on to each other because they are disdained by everybody else. Bakarakara, bakarakara. These people behave this way because that's just the way they are, right? Horasarete, saichate, it's been struck and yet it still blooms. Shosen arabana doku no hana. After all, it's a poison flower, possibly a useless poison, a useless flower, like a weed, right? That's all it is. You shouldn't expect anything good from something like this or something like them, all right? And the reason that I'm emphasizing the flower as them, as a certain notion of femininity, kicks in here in the bridge of the song, where suddenly the tonality shifts, and you can see that in this image, now they're in the rain, and all that sort of power and strength in the choreography goes away, and the lyric changes quite drastically. Man, I gotta say this this bit gets me emotionally every time. The 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 song changes quite really drastically. All that energy is taken away. Onna ni umarete. I was born a woman. Onna de shindeku. I will die a woman. Sarame nara. If that's my fate, iso, it's okay. It's okay. And then Miju inserts that little line, Anata no te de ima sugu chirashite. With your hands now, scatter it. It's an image that we saw at the beginning of the song. The scattering of of whatever the poison flower is, the distribution of it, the spreading of it, as they sort of resolve to be what they are. And I think that this business, suddenly the song foregrounds their femininity in ways that I think clarify what the song is really about the poison flower, what is acceptable and unacceptable for women, particularly for Japanese women, perhaps, and their embrace of what might be considered unconventional, inappropriate, rude, or, they're all about standing out, right? This is a phrase that they use a number of times. They talk a lot about hamidashite iku, standing out from the crowd. Very, very un-Japanese. Protruding is one way of translating it, and that sounds stupid, but that sort of proverbial wisdom in Japan: the nail that stands up will be hammered down. And they're saying the opposite. They're saying we have to stand up for ourselves as individuals and for what we believe and what we're interested in. And in a sense, that's their embracing of that in this song, right? As specifically as women. And it builds, right? There's that sort of moment of pathos, and then it kicks back in, and we get to this. Man, it's so good. It's so good. So again, the miserable flower, it doesn't even have any thorns. Awerera to hito monai. When it looks pitiful, there's no one there to pick it up, right? Hence the grouping, I think. They cling together because there's no one there to help. Didn't even bear fruit from the place where I lamented. Nagaita tokore. And then back to the hayai toko, karate, the withering, dwindling on the spot, or shimai, perishing, ending, collapsing in on yourself. And I think the idea is in some ways a very adolescent one, that sense of being an outcast, being rejected, not fitting in, and trying to embrace the things that make you different as a sign of strength, but in the face of everybody telling you that you're wrong or you're bad, right? For not being the same as everybody else. That's the song. I love those images of the sort of outcast in the school hallway, especially when we see through the bars like it becomes a prison, and the images of them in the rain, where the rain itself becomes tears. So it's that mix of grief and strength. And I love also the way that the choreography uses the swirl of the skirts. They talk about this in an interview to sort of to create that flower image, right? It's like a tulip that blooms around them. Beautiful stuff, it's great. It's artistry. This is what I was saying at the beginning before my little rant. That's why I like these guys. That there is an attempt to elevate pop music to the level of art, and that's always to be commended. So I think as with Autumn Blue, I think there's a paradox at the center of the song, right, which is about the difficulties of life when you're on the outskirts, on the fringes, but trying to embrace those things that are difficult and make you strange or unusual, unconventional, as a source of strength and as a source of value, right? And I wanted to play you this little bit from a little video series that they did, and I love the energy of this as a marker of who they are and what they are finally about. The guy that you're seeing here is the teacher who sort of keeps being sort of summoned from the classroom by the principal, and each time he leaves the classroom, the four girls arrange do a little gymnastic thing where they climb up on the desks and such, and then they return to their seats. And then at the end, he comes back in, and we get this.
皆さんにとって大人とは何ですか？
大人でも迷うことってあるんですか？迷ってるんですか先生？迷うことは悪いことじゃない。迷うからこそ見つかる自分がいるんです。その自分を信じ続けて突き進む。それこそが青春なんです！迷うが私！迷ってもいいんだ！それこそが青春！
It's such a great sentiment, that it's okay to feel lost. And the way, I love the fact that the attitude to the teacher, who's presented in this sort of very conventional fashion, is both confrontational and direct and expressing themselves, but then there's room to include him in their youthful revolution. People talk about the uniforms. Somebody asked on the video last time, what happens when they're too old to wear the uniform? And I've worried about that as well. They're, 18, 19, I think Miju is 21, I think, at this point. And so, their days of wearing school uniforms as school-age children are over already, But I think that the Gakko, the school that they represent, the new school that they represent, transcends conventional education. And even though they talk a lot about being a high school student, the version of youth culture that they're advocating for goes beyond that. And I think it's really interesting that the teacher is incorporated finally into it, that their notion of youth is about finding yourself, which is something that you can do at any age, particularly if it requires you to shake off whatever conventional ideas you have grown accustomed to. And that's what I think they're all about. I'm going to say today, hope you found it interesting or entertaining or whatever. If so, please like, comment, subscribe, and whether I do more of these about this band will kind of depend on how people respond. I'd like to do another couple because I do really like these guys and I want to see them do well. If I can help to promote them, then I will. All right, that's all. I will leave the last word to Suzuka-chan.
それでは以上、新しい学校のリーダーズでした。 バイバイ